Good morning, students. Today I am going to start with the 5th semester paper 1 that actually includes, the title of the paper is Morphology of Angiosperms and Taxonomy, and I am going to deal with the taxonomy part of the paper. But before starting with the taxonomy directly, you need to study some of the morphological terms which are required to describe an angiospermic plant. So that I would like to complete the terminologies which are used to describe an angiospermic plant, and then I will continue with the families, which there are about 22 families which you are going to study, out of which Leguminacea family is having 3 subfamilies. So about 25 families totally you are going to study in the 4th unit of your paper 1 syllabus. And before starting with this syllabus, as I told, I will start with some terminologies to describe the angiospermic plant. Before going on to the terminologies, what you studied so far during your first year B.Sc and second year B.Sc or first to 4th semester B.Sc, you studied the lower members of plants, algae, fungi, bryophytes, pteridophytes, lichens, and all these microbiology part, viruses, bacteria, etc. in the first and second semester. And in the third semester you have studied the plant anatomy and embryology part of the botany, the study of plants. And in the fourth semester you have studied phytochemistry and plant physiology, the very vast paper. You have studied so many metabolic living activities taking place in the plant body in that fourth semester syllabus. And in the fifth semester you are going to study the angiosperms. The angiosperms are very highly evolved plants. They are highly evolved plants. And before going on to angiosperms, the plant kingdom, the entire plant kingdom, it is divided into 2 different groups. The first one is called as cryptogams. The second is called as phanerogams. The cryptogams, these are purely, the cryptogams are non-seeded plants. Means they never produce the seeds, whereas the phanerogams are seed producing plants. Okay, the cryptogams are the plants which never produce the seeds in their life cycle, whereas the phanerogams definitely produce the seed as a product of process of fertilization. As far as the cryptogams are concerned, the cryptogams are further classified into 3 divisions according to Eichler 1883. He classified the cryptogams into 3 divisions. The first division includes Thallophyta. The second includes Bryophyta, and the third division includes Pteridophyta. You have learnt all the 3 in your first semester syllabus. Thallophyta includes algae, fungi, lichens. Okay, where the plant body is generally referred as thallus, where the plant body is not differentiated into root, stem and leaf. In that case it is called as thallus. So all those members belong to Thallophyta. The Bryophyta includes liverworts and mosses. You have also studied these 2 categories of plants, where the liverworts means the plant body appears like the liver lobes of the animals, where it is dorsi-ventrally flat in nature. You have studied the life cycles of Rixia, Markantia, Anthoceros, etc. They belong to liverworts, where the plant body is dorsi-ventrally flat, whereas the mosses also you have studied, where the tiny plants having the rhizoids, a small, not very highly developed, poorly developed stem-like portion, and it is richly covered with many number of leaf-like structures. They are leaves. They are called as leaves only. So liverworts and mosses are there in the bryophytes. You have also studied this group of members. so that you have studied the total cryptogams in the first semester itself. And first and second semester of B.Sc syllabus. Second group, phanerogams, the seed producing plants. The phanerogams are further classified into two divisions. Gymnosperms and angiosperms. Okay? Gymnosperms and angiosperms. In both these words you find the sperms. It refers to seed. Sperma means seed. The seed producing plants are grouped under phanerogams. The gymnosperms, they are the naked seeded plants. Gymnos means naked. The gymnos word is naked. They are the naked seeded plants, means the seeds are not covered by the fruit wall, or there is no such kind of part which is produced in the plant that is called as a fruit, because it is not produced in any cavity. It is having its coat, but it is not protected by the fruit wall, or it is not produced inside the fruit, so the seeds are referred as the naked seeded plants. The angiosperms, the major category which you are going to study in this semester. This also you have studied cycas, pinus, netum, which belong to gymnosperms in the second semester syllabus. Okay, B.Sc second semester syllabus. Now the angiosperms are the highly evolved plants, where the angios means they are all Greek terms called as vessel. Vessel means a container. A container. So container which is going to contain the seed inside. And those category of plants are called as the angiosperms. Or the vessels, they contain the seeds inside, because you are going to study the floral parts in detail in the further part of the syllabus, because the ovules are present in the carpel. Carpel is one part which is it is a chamber of the ovary, which is also protected by ovary wall, and inside it is going to have the placenta to which the ovules remain attached. And that is why it is considered as a vessel, or it is considered as a container, so that there is a protective covering around the seed in addition to the seed coat. Okay, the seeds, they are having the seed coats, but along with the seed coats they are also externally protected by the septa of the carpel, and externally it is protected by the ovary wall. So they are highly protected seeds which are produced in the group of plants. They are called as the angiosperms. So I am going to begin with this, because in the fifth semester you are going to study the angiosperm morphology and taxonomy. Now, let us begin with the angiosperms. Okay? The meaning of angiosis is a Greek term. The seeds are contained inside the container or in the vessel, means it is highly protected by the ovary wall, that is the fruit, because always you see the seed nature. You take a fruit, take a fruit, lemon fruit, and you have to open the lid. Inside you will find the juicy hairs, and innermost part is having axis. In the center there will be an axis around which the seeds will be there. So that seeds are highly protected. They are externally protected by the ovary wall. They are deeply seated inside the ovary, so that they are called as the angiospermic type of plants. Along with this, the angiosperms are characterized by the flowering nature. All flowering plants belong to angiosperms. Okay, this is the first character of the angiosperms, along with which ovules are highly protected. Ovules are enveloped by, or ovules are covered, or ovules are protected by ovary wall. All. You can say that the entire fruit, the pericarp of the fruit, that is what is ovary wall. So it is going to give the protection to the ovule apart from its own seed coat. Okay, apart from its own integuments, because at the ovule level we call the outermost covering of the ovule as integuments. Outer and inner integuments will be there, and the integuments are going to give rise to the seed coats. Apart from the seed coat, it is protected by the ovary wall, or it is deeply seated in the ovary or in the container. That is why it is called as the angiosperms. Okay. So now the angiosperms, the term taxonomy angiosperms. Okay. What is this taxonomy? The taxonomy word was coined and first used by A.P.D. Cantor in 1830. He was the first man to coin the term taxonomy and use the term taxonomy. The taxonomy can be defined as the science of classification of organisms. The science of classification of organisms. Okay, organisms according to their resemblances and differences. Okay, based on the resemblances and differences between the plants, they are classified. The organisms are classified. That is the definition for the word that is called as taxonomy. Or it is the science of, taxonomy is the science of classification and relationship of organisms. Otherwise, this is the first one. Otherwise, the taxonomy is a science of classification and relationship. Classification and relationship of organisms. Again, it is same. If you define the taxonomy as resemblance and difference also, it is same. Again, this is the same word is interpreted as relationship. The differences or resemblances. It is ultimately the classification of organisms. Generally, we use another terminology that is called systematics. Systematics is another terminology generally used as a synonym for taxonomy, but it is not a synonym. Systematics is the part of classification. Systematics is the part of classification that involves arrangement of organisms into related groups. Arrangement of organisms into related groups. Arrangement of organisms into related groups is called as the systematics. So both the terminologies are commonly used, taxonomy as well as the systematics. The Greek meaning of taxonomy itself is arrangement by rules. Taxonomy, the word meaning is a Greek terminology. The meaning is arrangement by rules. Because there are fixed rules for classifying the plants. We cannot assign any plant to any family. We cannot create a new family as it is. There are some rules to be obeyed during the classification of organisms or during the arrangement of organisms. Whereas systematics meaning is to put together. Okay. So both are used in the classification of the common terms which are used in the classification of plants and all other organisms. Okay. And today I will begin with this brief introduction about the taxonomy and the various divisions which are there, or what are the different parts which you have studied so far. I am going to start with the terminologies which are used to describe the angiospermic plants. Description of an angiospermic plant. Because generally this 5th semester, you will be provided with a twig with inflorescence in the practicals, and you must be able to describe the plant and all the important features which you are going to observe. It's very simple and very easy. Taxonomy is very easy actually. You are going to observe the character, and as it is, you are going to write the description for that particular plant, your plant. And during that kind of description, you must use some terminologies. We cannot write simply we cannot write we cannot use any simple words. But generally, there are fixed terms which gives the specific meaning, and those terms have to be used and describe the plant. You have to describe the plant. So that is why I'll begin with, to make the taxonomy very easy for you, the description of an angiospermic plant I'm going to begin with. So first character what you are going to write about the plant is habitat of the plant. Okay? Habitat is the area where the plant is generally plant grows, or it can be a cultivated plant. So in this case, you are going to write whether the plant is cultivated, wild, ornamental, crop plant, and so on. Okay? May be cultivated or it occurs in wild state. It may be an ornamental plant or a crop plant. So that is to be mentioned. So it is wild or it is cultivated, or it is a xerophytic plant, or it may some plants they occur in the ponds and pools or in the water. Then they are to be called as aquatic plants. Xerophytes are plants growing in the water scarcity area or the desert area. They are called as xerophytes. Hydrophytes, epiphytes, the plants growing over the branches of the tree. They are called as epiphytes. And this is the habitat of the plant. Okay? And very specifically you can mention whether it is an ornamental plant or it is a crop plant or it is a medicinal plant. All these are going to add the value to the plant. You can add value to the habitat of the plant. So that thing is to be described in the habitat part of the description. The next part to be described is habit of the plant. Okay, so habit means whether the plant is a herb, it is a shrub, or a tree, or a climber. There are many climber, twiners, etc. We will come to know with the study of stem, all the terminologies. Okay. Mainly there are three categories of plants. Forget about this climber, I will explain it during the stem. So herb, shrub, or a tree. Herbs are very tiny plants, okay? They are very small plants, and all these grasses, small grasses, the lucas, tulsi, they are all example for the herbaceous nature. Small plants, they are called as herbs, tiny plants. The shrubs, medium-sized plants, moderate-sized plants are called as the shrubs. Moderate-sized plants, medium-sized plants. Small trees, it gives an appearance of a small tree. Guava, many a time guava, it is a small tree. Generally, it also grows as a long tree, larger tree also. But guava can be quoted as an example for this moderate-sized plant, that is called as a shrub. Hibiscus, it acquires a moderate height, then it can be called as a shrub. It cannot be assigned, or it cannot be put into the herbs category, so it can be a shrub. So moderate sized plants can be called as a shrub. The trees, you know, all these coconut, arecanut, mango, cashew, they are all example for the trees. They are taller plants. Tall plants are called as the trees. Okay. Apart from this, you can write whether it is a climber or it is a twiner. All these things you can trailer, creeper, etc. that can be added to the habit nature of the plants. Apart from this, you must use the terminologies whether the plant is an annual plant, or it is a biennial plant, or it is a perennial plant. Okay? So annual plant, annual, biennial, or perennial plants. Okay? This is to be mentioned. These are the three different words which are related to be mentioned in the habit part of the description. 1 year means 1 to 12 months duration. Biennials, accordingly, bi means 2. If the plant needs 2 years to complete its life cycle, then it can be called as biennial plant. Generally, the banana is one good example. Banana is an example for biennial plant because in the first year it completes its vegetative growth. The second year it produces the flower, inflorescence. Once it produces the flower, we know banana is going to be produced. Once the banana is ready to harvest, the plant is cut. So it needs 2 years to complete its life cycle, and hence the plants can be called as biennial plants. The perennial plants, which thrives more. The plants, there is no time limit for the completion of their life cycle. The plant remains for longer duration, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, 50 years, and so on. Those plants have to be called as the perennial plants. All these trees, banyan tree, mango tree, Michaelia champaka, coconut, areca nut, palms, most of the palms, and all of them they belong to perennial category. They remain for longer duration, many years. They remain for many years, then it is called as perennial plants. So you can add this also. Suppose if you are explaining a paddy, if you have provided with a paddy plant in the practicals, you are going to explain the habit of a paddy plant. You must explain it as it is an annual herb. Okay. Suppose if you are explaining a banana plant, then you have to describe it as it is a biennial shrub or it's a moderate sized tree with a pseudo stem. There is a false stem. Whatever it is visible in the banana plant, it is a false stem made up of sheathing leaf bases. So that this is how to describe the habit of the plants. Okay. Along with this, in the habit itself, you can add a few more characters. In the habit, along with the annual, biennial or perennial, along with herbs and shrubs and trees, you have to add one more, 2 or 3 characters again. If the plants are hairy plant parts, that can be mentioned in the habit only. If the plant parts is very much fragrant, that can be also mentioned. If it is very much spiny, that can be also mentioned in the habit itself. And these are all the additional characters which must be explained in the habit part itself. Directly you can put it in the habit itself. Sometimes, if you include the plant parts, you find that milky latex is going to come out. The plant parts with milky latex that can be added. Plant parts with milky latex. Then plant parts with acrid juice that is found in case of mango and cashew plants. They are characterized by a kind of corrosive or acrid juice, the plant parts. And all these things are to be added in the habit itself. If you find that kind of very special mucilage in the plant part, that can be added. Plant parts with mucilage can be added, because one good example for this is the lady's finger family, the hibiscus family, Malvaceae, and the Malvaceae is always characterized by mucilaginous plant parts. If you crush the lady's finger, we know the lady's finger vegetable, it becomes slimy, it is mucilaginous in nature because of the presence of mucilage in the plant parts, including the fruit. Hibiscus is also one good example where we get the mucilage in the plant part. That is to be added in the habit itself. Okay. So if you are describing the hibiscus plant, you can describe it as it is a perennial shrub, right? It grows, it remains for longer duration, more than 2 years. In that case, it is a perennial plant, perennial shrub, having mucilage in the plant parts, mucilaginous plant parts. That can be explained. If you are describing a lemon plant or any citrus species, or these are trees, orange, Mosambie, etc., then you can describe it as perennial trees having very fragrant plant parts. Okay, they have a different kind of smell because they have translucent glands over the entire plant part, so that nature is described as gland dotted. And you will come to know all these features during the study of families. We are not worry now. And these are all the additional qualities which are to be mentioned in the habit itself. Okay, that completes the second part, that is the habit. After this, the next part of study is the root system. Root. basic knowledge of the student who is studying biology or botany. All dipart plants are characterized by the taproot system and all monocots are characterized by the fibrous root system. That is fixed. Okay, we cannot change it. And if you are able to identify whether the plant belongs to dipods or monocots, you can directly mention it is characterized by taproot system, dipods, whereas monocots are characterized by fibrous root system. So in case of the root system, if you find any additional characters, it is to be mentioned. So whether the root system is taproot or it is the fibrous root system. Many cases, many plants in which the roots are modified for various other purposes, or the root system, that is in case of adventitious root, that comes a word that is called as adventitious roots. And in this case, the roots developing from other than radicle are called as the adventitious roots. These are the root systems which are developing from other than radicle. Other than radicle, then it is called as an adventitious root. And this is to be mentioned whether it is fibrous, taproot or it is adventitious root. Many times the grass family members, they have adventitious roots only because the radicle is not a permanent structure among them. But in case of dipods, radicle directly gives rise to taproot system. So it produces a very strong root system, main root, secondary root, tertiary roots, root hairs, etc. Very complex root system is going to be produced in case of dipods, and it is called as the taproot system. Apart from this, generally the roots are meant for fixation, absorption and conduction. They are the three normal functions of the root system. Fixation of the plant to the soil, absorption of available water and mineral from the soil, conduction of absorbed water and mineral to aerial parts of the plant. These are the three normal functions of the root system. Apart from this, sometimes the roots may be modified to provide various types of support to the plant, or to help the plants in various mechanisms or in the various processes. Then it is to be mentioned. That comes in the modifications. You are going to study the root system and modifications in detail. I need not explain again. So that if you find that kind of modifications, you can explain. It may be a taproot modified for storage, as it is found in case of carrot, beetroot and radish, etc. Many times the tuberous roots of sweet potato is a modification for the storage purpose. Banyan tree, the roots, adventitious roots are modified to provide mechanical support to the plants. Climbing roots of beetle vine, they also provide mechanical support to the plants. And this is to be mentioned if you find that kind of modifications in the plant. Okay? Then the next part of study is with respect to the stem. Fourth is the stem. So here you are going to describe the stem nature. First thing is whether it is erect or weak stemmed plant. Okay, erect or weak stemmed plant. Erect means it can stand straight. Okay, mango tree, erect type of branches, hibiscus, rose, they are all with erect stem. Weak stemmed plants, they cannot stand straight. Unless they get support, proper support, they cannot stand straight because of their weak nature. And that is to be mentioned whether the stem is erect or it is weak stemmed in nature. So this is having strong stem, whereas these are the weak stemmed plants. And once you mention that weak stemmed plants, whether among this category of plants, weak stemmed plants, here you have to mention whether it is a climber, twiner, trailers, creepers, etc. You can mention whether the plant belongs to a climbing nature, or it is a twiner, twines around the support, or it is a trailer which trails over the surface, and whether it is a creeper generally. And this is to be mentioned in the stem. Okay. After this, any special modifications if you find. Modifications can be mentioned. If you find any modifications, it can be mentioned, because many stem generally supports the plant organs, plant parts, but apart from this normal function, stem also performs various other functions. In many cases, it may act as a storage part, as it is found in case of open shear. The entire stem becomes flattened green structure and it stores lot of quantity of water in it because it is a xerophyte. Apart from it, it also performs the function of photosynthesis because it appears like a leaf flattened structure. Phylloclade, we call it as phylloclade. Many times it is rhizomes, they are found in ginger, turmeric, etc. The stem is modified for the purpose of storage. Even onion, the stem is modified for storage. Onion, corn of Amorphophallus, they are all examples for the modification of stem for storage. Even the potato is also a modification. It is called a stem tuber because the stem is modified for the purpose of storage. That is to be mentioned. Then the form of stem. Form, the shape of the stem. It may be cylindrical, angular, flat, etc. We can mention. Generally, in most of the cases, the stem is cylindrical in nature. Okay, it is cylindrical in nature because if you cut a stem section, if you take a stem section, it comes in round. It appears as round. Angular, general. This is general feature. Cylindrical nature is general feature. Suppose if it is angular in outline, this can be clearly seen in case of leucus. Is an example for plant having angular type of stem. Many times it is flattened, such as open shear. Open shear, the stem is flattened. So flat nature of the stem, it can be mentioned, and these are all the special features or the form of stem. If it is cylindrical, mention the stem is cylindrical, angular stem or it is flat stem, etc. That is to be mentioned. Then the next part of study is surface of the stem. Surface of the stem can be mentioned. Okay. In case of this part, you have to mention whether the surface is hairy, spiny, glabrous, etc. Okay. So this is to be mentioned. Hairy. If you have written the habit itself, if the habit itself has hairy plant parts, need not describe again. It is hairy. Hairy nature. Tomato, characterized by hairy type of stem. Hairy hairs are present over the surface of the stem. Or the spiny plant parts. The presence of spines over the surface of the plant parts or over the stem. So this is also found in case of spiny stem, is found in case of rose is an example for spiny stem, or in a wide variety of brinjal, solanum species, that is characterized by the presence of spines. Glabrous is rough texture of the stem, and that can be glabrous, etc. That can be also mentioned in the surface of the stem. Okay, so these are the things to be described in the stem. Right? The stem, when it is branched or unbranched, that can be also added, highly branched, profusely branched, or unbranched, woody nature of the stem. All these things can be explained in the stem. Apart from that, whether it is an erect stem or a weak stem, if it is characterized by weak stem, you have to mention whether it is a climber, twiner, trailer, etc. That can be mentioned. And after that, you are going to mention about the modifications if you find in the given plant, then you mention the character, otherwise no. Then the form of the stem, whether it is normal case, it will be cylindrical. Rarely, some plants they have angular kind of stem, and in the modification of phylloclade in open shear, it is flattened. That can be mentioned. Surface, if it is hairy, spiny, glabrous, that is to be mentioned in the stem part. Okay. Then the next part of study is the type of leaves. The words to describe the leaves. Okay. Now the leaves. Leaves are the lateral flattened appendages which are found at the nodal region of the stem. Okay. They are the lateral flattened appendages found at the nodal region of the stem. The first part to describe in the leaf is insertion of leaf. Insertion. Whether it is radical or This is the condensed stem from which several leaves arise from a common point. All of you have seen radish. This is the highly condensed stem. Why this arrangement of the leaf happens like that in this plant is, the reason is the stem is highly condensed. It's the main root modified for the purpose of storage. This is only this much portion. Actually it is non-edible part of radish and that is cut. We cut it and throw it. And that part is a stem. It is highly condensed. It is not elongated, which is well differentiated into nodes and internodes. That is the reason why many of the leaves or whatever the number of leaves which are present in the plant, they are arising from a common point in a circular manner or in a rosette-like manner. Then it is called as a radical kind of arrangement. Generally in mustard plant it will be similar, it will be of same type in the beginning. And once the flowering begins in mustard plant, the shoot grows and it acquires sudden increase in its height. That phenomenon we call it as Botany phenomenon, and the leaves are sparsely arranged during the flowering season. That is a hormonal effect in case of mustard plant. So this is radical arrangement, means the leaves arising from a common point in a rosette-like manner. Carrot is also example for the same. Radish and carrot are example for radical arrangement of the leaves. Pauline, normal case. The leaves are sparsely arranged over the stem. One leaf at every nodal region, two leaves may be there at every nodal region, three may be there, but the leaves are very sparsely arranged. This is one leaf. Next node will have the second leaf. Again it continues, third leaf, and so on. You will find the gap between the leaves which are there on the stem. They are scattered over the stem. And in this case, this arrangement must be called as pauline arrangement. Okay? First you have to see that whether the leaf arrangement is radical or it is pauline insertion. The next is to be described, next part is to be described, that is called as petiolate or sessile. Petiolate or sessile. Petiole is the stalk of the leaf. If you find a distinct stalk in the leaf is to be described as petiolate. Petiolate means the leaf with petiole. Okay? Or the stalk. Sessile meaning is the leaf without stalk. Okay? If the leaf is without stalk, then you can say that it is a sessile leaf, whereas in case of petiolate, the leaf is with the stalk. Next. Stipulate or exstipulate. Okay. Now what are these stipules? Stipules are small leaf-like structures. They are the additional leaf-like structures which are formed at the leaf base. Okay, they are found at the leaf base. Good example is found in case of hibiscus. In case of hibiscus leaf, you will find two small leaf-like structures. It's not in the axil. On lateral sides, we find two small leaf-like structures, and this is to be called as stipule. And if you find such kind of leaf-like structures, always it occurs in pairs. Stipule occurs in pairs too. It will be in two numbers. And these two stipules, if these two extra leaf-like structures are present at the leaf base, then it is to be called as stipulate leaf. Hibiscus is an example. And if you do not find such kind of stipules at the base of the leaf, then you can describe the leaf as exstipulate in nature. Okay, without stipule. So this is exstipulate. This is found in case of Vinca rosea. Vinca rosea is an example for exstipulate leaf, whereas stipulate leaf, rose leaf, hibiscus leaf, ixora, they are all example for the leaves having the stipules. Okay? Then the next word which is used to describe the stipule is, and before going on to the next part of description in the leaf part, stipules if you find, you have to mention what kind of stipule it is. You are going to study the stipules in detail in the leaf part and the morphology part of the syllabus. Okay, there are different kinds of stipule. Free lateral stipule is there. Adnate kind of stipule is found in case of rose. Interpetiolar stipule is found in case of ixora. Interpetiolar stipule means petiolar kind of stipule, and that is to be mentioned in the stipulate kind of leaf. If there is no stipule, no problem, it is to be described as ex-stipulate in nature. The next part which is to be described in the leaf is phyllotaxy. Phyllotaxy. The proper arrangement of the phyllotaxy. The arrangement of leaves on the stem. Because all the leaves are to be properly arranged on the stem to fetch or to absorb more and more amount of sunlight, which is the main requirement for the process of photosynthesis. They are not simply arranged as the plant wishes. They are arranged according to in a proper manner. And the study of leaf arrangement on the stem is what is phyllotaxy. And based on the phyllotaxy may be, there are different types: alternate, opposite, or whorled. Alternate, opposite, or whorled kind of phyllotaxy. So these are the three types. So I will start with the alternate one. Alternate phyllotaxy means, in this kind of phyllotaxy, one leaf arises at one nodal region, single leaf. One leaf comes on the left side. You draw the, I will continue the same diagram. Next leaf, third leaf, and so on. Okay, in this case, this is an example for alternate phyllotaxy, where this leaf is on the right side, this is on left, right, and so on. So, okay, at every nodal region it will have only one leaf. They are alternately arranged, and that pattern of arrangement is called as alternate. The second type, opposite kind of phyllotaxy. Opposite, the word itself gives the meaning. Okay, two leaves which are quite opposite to each other. So this is the first node, one leaf, this is another leaf. Again second pair, it looks like they are arranged in pairs. Okay, so this is the opposite phyllotaxy. You can make out the difference between alternate and opposite now. Here there is only one leaf at every nodal region. Here there are two leaves at every nodal region, quite opposite to each other, exactly opposite to each other. So in this case, this kind of phyllotaxy is to be called as opposite phyllotaxy. Sorry. Once you find that it is opposite phyllotaxy, then you have to check. There are two different kinds of opposite phyllotaxy. Opposite superposed and opposite decussate. Okay, there are two different types of phyllotaxy. Opposite superposed, again same. If you find only two parallel rows, this is in one parallel row, these two pairs are in parallel to each other. So if this is the arrangement, if you look at the stem, you can, if you handle the stem, you will get the two parallel rows of leaves arranged on the stem, which are quite opposite to each other. And in that case, it is to be called as opposite superposed in nature. They are arranged in two parallel rows. Quisqualis is one good example. Quisqualis is an example for opposite superposed phyllotaxy. The second type is called as opposite decussate. So the first pair of leaves, they are alternate opposite in nature, and very next pair will be at right angles to the previous. So that if this is the arrangement, in that case, you will find that four distinct rows of leaves can be seen. If you observe the stem from the top, you will get that four rows of leaves are arranged on the stem. Basically, the phyllotaxy is opposite only. Two leaves found at every nodal region quite opposite to each other. But the first pair, if it is opposite like this, the next successive pair will be at right angles to the previous pair. And in that case, if you observe from the top, you will find that there are four distinct rows of leaves arranged on the stem. In that case, it becomes opposite decussate. Good example can be seen in case of Calotropis. Vinca rosea. All of you have Vinca rosea in your book. You can check it in Vinca rosea. Even in Tulsi also, we find Phyllotaxy, opposite decussate phyllotaxy, 4 leaves arranged at 4 distinct rows. So that is the opposite phyllotaxy. So you have to check whether it is alternate, it's over, only alternate. If it is opposite, you have to check whether it is superposed or it is decussate in nature. Mention the word, use the word. The next is called as whorled. Whorled phyllotaxy. Whorl means around. It will be present in the form of a circle around the nodal region. Whorled phyllotaxy is having more than 3 and more than 3 leaves at every nodal region. So 3 or more than 3 leaves at every nodal region. At every node. You find 3 leaves or more than 3 leaves. One good example is found in case of nerium. Nerium is a good example where you will get, this is the nodal region. This is one leaf. The second and the third. Okay, 3 leaves arising from one nodal region. Sometimes 4 leaves may arise from same node or 5 may be there. Nerium is one good example which is having only 3 leaves. Nerium. And plant called as Alstonia. It is a tree. Hale is a Kannada name for Alstonia. In case of Alstonia, it is called as Saptaparni because 7 or more number of leaves, 5, 6, 7 number of leaves are found at every nodal region. That is why the plant is called as Saptaparni also. And the tree is called as Alstonia. And if you get 3 leaves or more than 3 number of leaves at every nodal region, the phyllotaxy is to be described as whorled kind of phyllotaxy. Found in Nerium and Alstonia are example for most of these Apocynaceae members are example for that kind of phyllotaxy, that is called as the whorled kind of phyllotaxy. Got it? The phyllotaxy is the arrangement of leaves on the stem at the nodal region. If you find only one leaf at every nodal region alternating with the successive leaves, the phyllotaxy is to be called as alternate. If you find 2 leaves quite opposite to each other at every nodal region, it is to be described as opposite. And if it is opposite, then you have to check whether the leaves are arranged in 2 parallel rows, it is superposed. If they are, the successive pairs are attracted to the previous pair, then it is to be described as decussate in nature. And if you find 3 leaves or more than 3 leaves at every nodal region, as found in case of Nerium and Alstonia, it is to be described as whorled kind of phyllotaxy. Okay? Then the next part of studying the leaf is the kind of leaf. Kind of leaf, type of leaf. Whether the leaf is simple or it is compound. Okay? Whether the leaf is simple or it is compound. Simple leaf. The leaf having unbroken exparted lamina. Okay? This is having this is a simple leaf. Okay? This is unbroken exparted lamina. Okay? It's not broken at all. It is unbroken exparted lamina. It is simple leaf. If it is simple, no further description. You have to write it as simple. That's it. But once